Attention is the single most important thing we possess. A bold statement, perhaps, but easy to justify once we understand what attention is and how it shapes our lives. As I was preparing to write this essay, I thought about Isaac Newton and the moment that led to his theory of gravity. Imagine it's 1655, and he sees an apple fall from a tree. He'd seen apples and all sorts of other things fall to the ground his entire life, but this time he wonders why. It would have seemed absurd to anyone had he spoken the question aloud. Why did that apple fall? Because that's just what apples do, right? Yet Newton's mind, undistracted by the obvious, wondered why. If you throw something up, why doesn't it just keep going up? Could there be some invisible force at work? The kind of mind it takes to even consider such a question is startling in its genius. I use this illustration so we can approach a similar question with an open mind. What is attention? It seems too obvious to ask, but let's ask anyway, in the spirit of Isaac. Like gravity, attention is also an invisible force, and perhaps no less powerful. We talk about it constantly. We need to pay more attention. We need to pay less attention. We need longer attention spans. But what is it exactly? To answer, we must first speak of awareness, the foundation of attention. Imagine yourself sitting quietly in a chair looking out at a garden. You hear birds, see flowers, smell lunch cooking, and feel your breath, all without effort. This is awareness, your natural state. It isn't something you do, it's the effortless presence that registers everything at once. Now imagine a hummingbird arrives and captures your interest. That relaxed, open awareness condenses into a single beam of focus, attention. You've shifted from a seamless state in which no one thing takes precedence over another to a state of focus on one particular object, the hummingbird. Attention is the tool we use to focus our spacious awareness on something specific. Think of awareness as the sun and attention as a magnifying glass, focusing that vast sunlight into a single point. In this case, it's a hummingbird, but it might just as well be a book, another person, or a thought. The most extraordinary teaching I've ever received about attention came through the African plant medicine iboga. These experiences are ineffable by nature, and there is no way to ever quite capture the holistic character of them in words, like trying to recount a dream, but I will do my best to convey the teaching. One of iboga's mysterious effects is that, for some, it can open what's called the third eye. The concept was familiar to me, but it had never held much importance. So when the facilitators mentioned the possibility of it beforehand, I thought it was interesting, possibly wild, but really didn't care if it happened for me or not. As it turned out, iboga had other plans. I was lying on my bed 14 hours into my first iboga journey, and I had just emerged from a series of very intense inner passages, feeling open and free. When I closed my eyes, a series of visions appeared. A beautifully appointed office suite, stampeding animals on an African savanna, the ocean from a beachside cabana window. They were more vivid and real than the everyday world. Iboga told me, in the silent way plants communicate, that I was seeing through my third eye. In all my years of working with plant medicine, I had never seen anything like this. These visions didn't feel hallucinatory at all. They felt absolutely real, as if I were standing in each place. They were vibrant and rich, yet totally impersonal. Only in the fact of their extraordinary clarity and beauty were they utterly moving. After some time, I opened my eyes and looked up at the vaulted wooden ceiling of my room. When I closed my eyes again, I was still able to see the ceiling, now through my third eye, but the material had changed to a dark, roughly textured stone, like those used for garden walls. Unlike the sunlit ceiling of my actual room, this stone ceiling was dimly lit, barely visible. As my vision drifted across it, I noticed a faint light illuminating whatever I was directly looking at. It was like looking around a dark room using a low-powered flashlight. But it wasn't a flashlight, it was the light of my attention. I knew it intuitively. Wherever my attention fell, the stone began to move, to come alive. Peripheral areas just outside of the light remained static, but as soon as the light of attention would pass over it, it would come to life. In that instant, I understood. Attention is literally an energy that transforms whatever it touches. There's no choice. It's like a law of physics, but in the spiritual realm. The vast intelligence that is Iboga was giving me a direct experience of attention in action. Fortunately, it doesn't take a 14-hour Iboga journey to see how attention works in our daily lives. Attention is like food in the form of energy. What am I feeding with my attention? Where am I placing my energy? What am I giving my life to? Do I focus on things that bring me peace or things that cause me stress? This simple barometer can show us how we're living and where change is possible. There are innumerable things we can put our attention on, but attention is limited by nature. In fact, we can only have our attention on one thing at a time. Most of the time, it shifts so quickly between objects, usually thoughts, that it seems as though we're able to pay attention to more than one thing at a time. But this is an illusion of mind, almost like a strobe light giving an illusion of continuity. Most of us use the bulk of our attention listening to thoughts in our minds, hence the term living in our heads. Unfortunately, it's become an unconscious, habitual movement inside of us. A thought arises, attention goes to it, interest sparks. And just like that, our energy is consumed by these inner dialogues. We believe them to be real, yet they have no life of their own. They're just thoughts. We bring them to life with our attention, and we keep feeding them moment by moment. In reality, we're not dealing with the situation at hand, we're dealing with the story our mind is telling about it. We think the situation makes us suffer, but it's really the story that does. We have the possibility of depriving those stories of attention and starving them at the root. They die on the vine if we're not feeding them energy. That's how a story makes a turn. We stop paying attention to it. It's like giving it the cold shoulder. Bring your attention into the present. Focus on what you're doing rather than what you're thinking about. That simple shift from mind to moment causes a radical change because it starves the stories that create suffering. Paying full attention to what you're doing now is a key to escaping the prison of your mind. One of the great joys of life is deeply focused attention, immersing ourselves in something for extended periods, like a creative project. When I used to edit films, I would sometimes work 10 hours straight. When finished, I often felt more refreshed than when I started. I realized why. During those hours, I was essentially selfless. I was so absorbed in the work that I barely thought about myself. What a relief! Being free of myself was incredibly rejuvenating. It gave me a taste of what attention feels like without a story. Simple, clean, focused, and powerful. I think it's safe to say we're living through an epidemic of attention. Too much of it, too often, for too little time. It feels erratic, exhausting, and empty. Our nervous systems weren't designed to handle this. We're in a battle against the algorithms for our attention. If we covet peace of mind, and frankly, who doesn't, it's a battle we must win. Furthermore, if we're on a path of self-realization, sustained attention is essential for spiritual inquiry. Meditation has never been more important than it is today, yet unfortunately, probably a harder sell than ever. It's always been a slow, challenging road, with immeasurable fruits as its reward, but it takes patience. There's nothing in shorter supply these days than that. Our minds have become a tapestry of mercurial stories, pulling us from one thing to another without pause. Meditation slows this process, allowing us to observe the mechanism of attention itself. Without it, life happens so fast that we rarely notice where our focus goes. Meditation becomes a little laboratory where we can watch the workings of mind up against a background of silence. The mind, however, is endlessly tricky and will complicate what is actually very simple. Unless you make an absolutely firm commitment to understand your own mind, you will forever be at its mercy. As essential as it is to learn one-pointed attention, it is equally important to learn how to let it go. Think of awareness and attention like a breath. We need to rest in effortless awareness as much as we need to exhale. The movement is back and forth, awareness, attention, not in a steady rhythm like breathing, but organically as our situation permits. There is no need to be focused on objects all the time. The flashlight of attention is a tool, the most powerful tool, but when we're not using it, we can turn it off and rest as the source of that light, as vast awareness. Awareness is non-dual and gives us a necessary break from ourselves. Most of us spend the majority of our time in our heads, which is a sad state of affairs because minds are a difficult place to live. It's really the last place we want to spend our time. Even worse, when attention is on thought, we aren't present. Presence is where the nectar is. Attention on thought robs us of the richness of presence. Here's an interesting little practice. Try to pay attention to nothing. Notice how you approach that instruction. Notice the mental gymnastics your mind may go through just trying to figure out where to start. It's like a Zen koan, pay attention to nothing. But how? It turns out there is no how. We don't actually pay attention to nothing. We let go of attention altogether. Like all directions on the spiritual path, it comes back to letting go. Let go of the habitual need to focus on something all the time. Let go of the energy of attention and rest back into your natural state of effortless awareness. It's not a doing, it's a stopping of all doing. We're not looking for awareness, we are awareness. When we stop looking for something to make us whole, we realize that we're already whole and always have been. I want to end with an example that I think most people can relate to. Plants. Not plant medicine this time, but simple houseplants. We seem to lump ourselves into one of two camps, those with green thumbs and those without. We think that the people who can somehow keep plants alive have some magical power, and it turns out they do. It's called attention. That's it. It's a form of love. Green thumbers care about their plants, and because of that, they give them attention. And with that attention, love, they grow. And without it, they die, as many know all too well. It's simple. It's not mysterious and unknowable. It's attention. It's literally the focus of our lives. And as every gardener knows, although we give something our attention, sometimes it dies anyway, and it breaks our hearts. It takes courage to give something attention because there's commitment in it, and commitment has no guarantees. Attention is our greatest treasure and should be treated as such. What are you giving your attention to?